Welcome to Creator Conversations, a monthly series where we sit down with top LinkedIn creators to talk about their challenges, triumphs, dreams, successes, and more. See what inspires them to create content and engage with communities around the world.
Hi, I'm Scott Rising, and welcome to Creator Conversations, a monthly live show where I speak to top LinkedIn creators about a trending topic in the world of work. Today we are talking about humor at work live from the LinkedIn New York office in the Empire State Building, but would love to hear where you all are tuning in from as well. So today recently we launched the funny reaction here at LinkedIn because we know that all of us spend way too much time at work to not laugh from time to time. Using humor at work isn't about being seen as a funny person or becoming more likable, although it may have that effect. When used appropriately, it actually makes you a better collaborator and more effective at your job. Do you have any funny stories about work you want to share? Maybe you had an unexpected guest in the background of your video call or said something embarrassing during an interview. Share those in the chat. We'll also be taking questions throughout the show, so feel free to drop those in as well. And then final thing, do not be shy with that funny reaction right here, right now. I am a millennial who needs validation from strangers online to function. So with that, let's welcome our guests. Joining me in New York, we have humor engineer, keynote speaker, corporate trainer, pun tweeter, Drew Tarvin. Welcome, Drew.
Thank you. It's an honor to be in the New York studios with you.
And joining us from the LinkedIn office in San Francisco, we have content creator, CEO of Work From Home Jokes, advisor, brand consultant, Natalie, aka Corporate Natalie. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you so much for having me. Please don't look up CEO of Work From Home Jokes. It is not a real thing. So apologies in advance for that.
Thank you for clarifying that for our audience. This is how you both describe yourself on LinkedIn, but to get us started, we are going to do a little icebreaker courtesy of Natalie.
Would you identify as a red wine, white wine, or a rosé? And if you don't drink, no worries. What's your favorite fountain soda? Let's all close our eyes and picture we're on a corporate retreat. Where would that retreat be and why? I'll start with you, Alex. If you could have any superpower in the world, what would it be? Where is your happy place? Susie, I'm going to put you on the spot here. What gets you up in the morning? And then you can popcorn it to anyone else on the line.
I really love how you literally close your eyes when you're asking one of those questions about the corporate retreat. But Natalie, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you identify as a red wine, a white wine, or a rosé? If you don't drink, no worries. What's your favorite fountain soda?
Thank you so much. Very surreal to hear it back. I will do rosé today, given I'm wearing a bright pink blazer. So I'll go with rosé.
That's absolutely perfect. And Drew, what about you? Same question.
I think I'm a Moscato because it's like adult Kool-Aid.
Okay, love that. I have never drinking Moscato out of a box, though. I would say that I am probably like a Cava. It's like kind of bubbly, but not so fancy. But the first question I want to ask both of you is just to start this conversation is, how has humor helped you in your career? And Natalie, why don't you start?
Definitely. I think when I started my career, I was so fearful of using humor, telling a joke, saying something wrong at the wrong time. And I was really serious at work, and I was always the funny friend at dinner with my friends, and that was kind of, I compartmentalized my humor in that regard of my life. But now, after starting Corporate Natalie and getting more comfortable using humor in the workplace, I think it's made my life and my work life and my personal life exponentially better.
So when you had those separate personalities, were people then sort of surprised to see that side of you when they stumbled upon your TikTok?
Yes. Well, I think like 6 months into my first job, we wrapped a project and we went to happy hour. And of course, after 2 margaritas, I start telling a couple jokes. The real Natalie starts to come out. And I remember the partner on my team is like, "You're kind of funny." I was like, "Oh, yeah, kind of sometimes." And then ever since, I've been kind of more comfortable telling jokes. I mean, always use it wisely. But yes, I think people were a little surprised.
Yeah, and I think when you hear that validation from someone who's quite senior, that's a good, like, okay, like maybe I can, it's okay to tell a few jokes.
Looking
here.
around, is it?
Yeah. And Drew, what about you? How's humor kind of been what's been your journey with humor in your career?
Certainly. I mean, for me, it's pretty much transformed everything that I do. I can say it's positively, changed my life for the better from the very get-go. Because my background is in computer science and engineering. I am not the quote-unquote naturally funny person. I'm a very much an introvert. If you know your personality assessments, I'm a type A, blue square, conscientious INTJ with the sign of Aquarius, which means I'm a stubborn, ambitious introvert who likes long walks on the beach. By myself, mostly. But I wasn't good with people. I was always good with computers. And then I started doing improv and stand-up in university, and it transformed my life because I could actually have conversations with people. I was a little bit more self-assured. I was more confident, not just in like my humor, but also in my ideas and who I was as a person. And even, of course, now it's my job, right? I'm a made-up humor engineer. But even prior to that, when I was working at Procter & Gamble, it was a way for me to connect with people. So it's absolutely transformed how I do things, and I think how people interact with me in some ways.
Yes, I think that one of the natural follow-ups I need to ask you is, what is a humor engineer exactly?
Humor engineer, it's a completely made-up job title, which I think is fantastic. A great use of LinkedIn is put that kind of in there. But essentially, it's a combination. When I was a computer science engineer, I realized I was solving problems with things like computers, with technology, with programming, etc. And then as I started working internally at P&G and then later with different organizations and individuals, I realized, I'm solving problems but using humor for better communication skills, leadership skills, confidence, etc. And so I was like, I think that makes me a humor engineer.
Absolutely. I mean, that makes sense to me. Natalie, do you feel like you come to your humor a little bit from like a different place? You definitely didn't go to humor engineering school, I know.
I think, yes, I think very different. Even just hearing Drew, you intro yourself, I'm like, I think we might be yin and yang, exact opposites. Yes, I mean, like I said, I've just always used humor in my life. I'm super loud, super extroverted, not introverted at all, never afraid to tell a joke, except at work initially. But I don't, and I think people always ask me as a creator about my creative process, do you sit and brainstorm? Do you think of jokes in advance? And it's really just, it's super improv-y for me. It's very like, I'll just film a video if I have a thought, a fleeting thought. So I think there are definitely ways to learn and, exercise humor, but for me, it's a little more natural and innate, I would say, at least at this point in my life, which I'm thankful for.
Totally. Kimberly from the audience says, when a director let me borrow his office while he was traveling, I changed the title plate on his door to Senior Director of Sarcasm Services, parenthetical, and wine consultant, and I stand by those titles. I hope your director enjoyed that as much as we did, Kimberly. And so I think that's a really interesting idea around like the workplace and humor. And Drew, like, how do you make sure you don't cross any lines when you're trying to be funny at work? I mean, Kimberly played a joke on someone who I hope she knew what was going on there and they liked it. But yeah, how do you make sure you don't upset anyone?
Well, I think part of it is recognizing that your goal of using humor at work is different than what your goal would be of using humor if you're doing it on social media or if you're doing it with your friends around, a table or what you see in comedy clubs, right? The goal sometimes in comedy clubs is maybe you want to push the bounds a little bit or you're going to be a little bit more racy with your language or that kind of thing. Those are not the goals of using humor at work. It starts first with understanding, what am I trying to achieve with this? Am I trying to build rapport with the person? Am I trying to, start a presentation with a story so people are interested in it? And so having that little bit more of intention goes a really long way. And with that comes this idea of having, more positive, inclusive ideas. And one of the things that I'm very particular about of talking about humor in the workplace is that it's humor in the workplace, not comedy in the workplace, because there is a difference between the two.
So what is that difference?
Yeah, well, I mean, the difference is it's ranging from one can be comedy is about making someone laugh a lot of times, where humor is a little bit broader than that.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And there's the humor that you make at the office, but then Natalie, I think you have a really good example of sort of this side hustle / different thing you were doing on the side. And I've been dying to ask you, like, were you ever worried that people would see your videos and be like, oh my God, she's talking about me? Like,
Absolutely. I mean, even to this day, I'll get on a Zoom and someone's like fumbling to get their mic to work initially, and they're like, "I'm so sorry. Please don't make a video about me. I'm sorry." I'm just so fearful, and I'm like, I would never make a video about you. Like, people, it's never targeted. And I think I probably Drew and I would agree on this. Like, humor is just it's applicable to everyone. It's supposed to be like widespread applicable. I would never just make fun of an individual intentionally to harm someone. But yes, I was super scared that people would find out, and when I first started Corporate Natalie. And now I've become, really proud of it. And I think it's opened doors for me in my life in corporate America that I never would have expected. Like promotions and meeting amazing people and networking in ways that I never would have imagined. So very thankful that I took the risk and made that first video.
Well, and that's what's so funny about even your sort of name as Corporate Natalie. It's because people do have this idea about corporate as being really stuffy. We sometimes say the blue suit here at LinkedIn, like this idea that it's, and that comes from a very, loaded set. What is professionalism? And so in terms of how you've, used humor as Corporate Natalie, are you playing with a lot of those ideas around like what it means to be corporate or professional?
Totally. And it's those stereotypes that everyone knows and they're able to all relate to. And I'm so thankful that I got 1 year in the traditional corporate America pre-pandemic. So I got to see kind of the vast shift into the partners at my firm being in their suits at home on their Zooms, freaking out, their wives walking in the back. Like, it was just the craziest, most hilarious thing to witness. And I just had to poke fun at it. I mean, it was... Yeah, but those traditional stereotypes of corporate America are exactly what Corporate Natalie is trying to exploit.
Yeah, and that is funny because you had some time before the pandemic to even see what that contrast was going into all the work from home of which you are the CEO of those jokes. So I want to cue up a clip from Drew's learning course. And it's really, Drew has a really great learning course on how to, using humor to engage your audience. And we'll just watch a little clip here.
When we talk about humor in this course, we mean a comic, absurd, or incongruous quality causing amusement. Comedy is included, but it's only part of the equation. Humor is this giant bubble of amusing possibility. Within that is a subset of comedy. Within that, you have jokes, and within that, you have things like my golf game, which is very much a joke. When we think about humor in the workplace, getting someone to laugh is great, but getting them to smile is just as good.
So Drew, this you did a whole course on this, so I think I know what the answer is going to be, but can humor really be taught?
Yeah, well, it can certainly be taught. I think part of the real question is, can it be learned by other people, right? As well, can anyone learn to use humor? And I think that they can. I think anyone can learn to be funnier. Not necessarily, you're going to get a Netflix comedy special by doing a course or anything like that. But
although if you could, it would be amazing. We would send people there right now.
Exactly. Yeah. We're going to all do it and go. And instead, the idea is you can improve kind of that baseline. And I think a lot of times when people have this fear of like, I'm not funny, or I could never do stand-up or never do humor, they're thinking of a certain type of humor. They're thinking of the entertainers. They're thinking of the people who are on stage, or people like Natalie who are like, no, I've always kind of done this. I'm more extroverted and conversational. I clearly am not. Even just, you can tell our humor is very different. The question isn't, are you funny? I think the question is, what kind of funny are you? Because our styles are just so different. I think the three of us have very different styles, just as people listening right now probably have different styles. You might not be the funny person making jokes in front of everyone, but you might be the person sending memes out to people that are like, I know this is going to make you laugh or smile. Or you're the one that sees, Natalie's TikTok video and be like, I know the person that has to see this. That's a great form of humor. You didn't create it, but you're still creating levity. You're still creating a smile. And so I think that's a big part of it, is understanding it is a skill, which means it can be learned.
I really love that last point, because what you're saying too is you don't even have to be funny if you're good at recognizing what makes other people laugh or what other people find funny, especially if, there are definitely certain creators that I will send their videos to certain people because I know they love this Gen X or millennial humor or whatever it is. I know this is going to make them laugh. So that's a great way of, I'm sure someone's like, they see one of Natalie's videos and they're like, I know the person who's going to, and that's sort of a way who's going to like that. And that's sort of a way for people to sort of gain from Natalie's humor, but then they're expressing their own humor through Natalie's content.
Yeah, through what they're sharing. And that's what we found in our research, is that there's like 7 primary ways that people express their humor, and curator is one of them. Or, even just being an enthusiast, that person who's always laughing or always smiling, or if you're the person in a virtual meeting that is willingly turning on your camera and nodding along and smiling as people are presenting, that is tremendously beneficial as the person speaking, right? You joked about that with the funny reaction emoji. Yes, please add some funny reactions. It gives us validation. That is a small use of humor that is helping everyone that's even presenting it.
Oh yeah, I mean, when I'm on a video call, I'm like extreme. It's like commedia dell'arte. I'm just like very exaggerated. I'm like, just so people can see that I'm like how I'm feeling and reacting to them on a call. And Natalie, and how do you sort of delineate that comedic persona? I mean, obviously, corporate Natalie isn't you, and how do you still show up at work? How is your sense of humor different at work, I guess, is sort of what I'm curious about.
Definitely. I mean, I try to be the exact antithesis of the people I like depict in my corporate Natalie videos. I'm actually extremely type A. I'm an extremely hard worker. I really want people to respect me and value me for my intelligence and my drive and my ability to get things done. So, the coworker who's slacking off and the coworker who's never actually working from home, I never want to be perceived as. So it's interesting. I mean, it's hard to compartmentalize. Obviously, the two start blending together. I try to keep corporate Natalie very separate from even like my personal life, my work life. So it's, for me, it's a really unique situation. But corporate Natalie isn't the one employed in corporate America. Natalie is, but she's just it I play.
It's a little Hannah Montana.
Total Hannah Montana.
It's an interesting point though that you make, Natalie, about a little bit of that distinction. To me, it's with this kind of increased rise of wanting people to be authentic, right? We want to be bring your authentic self to work. Humor has to be a part of the equation, right? Because humor is something that we all deal with in our personal lives. And so I think this is why we're seeing more and more people appreciating the value of humor, is because if you're going to be authentic, humor comes with it.
Oh,
Totally.
Absolutely.
And I think, if I can add to that too, I think the rise of the kind of corporate like TikTok and humor stuff that I've kind of started, and there's a huge community of people making fun of corporate America and just like poking holes in this traditional system. And I think companies are now starting to welcome humor more. And I don't know if, Drew, you've seen like a shift since the pandemic of welcoming in, and you're seeing these settings of your coworkers at their home and in these intimate areas that you would have never seen before. And I think that's opened the door to more humor. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like I was doing a podcast interview with the CEO of Logitech, $1 billion company, and he was like, listen, just so you know, at any point a cat might walk through. This is because this is the cat's room that I've taken up my office in, and the cat rules this. It's like you are the CEO of an $8 billion company, and the cat is ruling this room. That's authentic, right? The pandemic and being virtual opened that authenticity up, and I think the hope is that we bring it back with us. Not that when we say bring yourself to work, we mean bring a professional kind of best version of yourself to work. If you're a terrible person, if you're constantly cursing and all this other kind of stuff, probably not appropriate in your job, but to still bring a little bit more of that authenticity, absolutely agree with.
Yeah, and Katie from the chat brings up a great point. I think in order to use humor effectively, you have to have the superpower of being able to read the room. No one wants to drop a killer one-liner that falls to silence, or even worse, a negative reaction. I think that gets to a crucial point of knowing your audience, maybe, as a key component of humor. What do you think about that, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Knowing your audience is a key component of, using humor that translates across different cultures, and using humor in a space where you're still supporting DEI initiatives, et cetera. And again, coming from a place of positive and inclusive, I think is really key. And also recognizing that humor in comedy is really interesting. Comedy is very simple in the sense that if someone is like, is something funny? The question is, well, did it make someone laugh? It's also very a setting where the same is true for offensiveness. Was that thing offensive? Well, it's like, did it offend someone? And as the humor creator, you don't get to decide if something is funny. You don't get to decide if something is offensive. It's based on the reaction. And I think part of that is being open to, are you coming from a positive, inclusive place? And if you do say something that offends someone, how do you react to it? Is it like, but it was just a joke, take it easy? Or is it like, I'm sorry, why did I offend, etc., and then going about apologizing and then also creating the space to have a conversation from it? Like, it doesn't mean that you're always going to be perfect, but how you react is really important.
Yeah, how you react in that moment says a lot, and it doesn't have to be something super offensive. But I am curious, Natalie, if you have found yourself in that position of just maybe not misunderstanding who the audience was, and maybe you said something that wasn't received well, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, no examples I can really think of. I think I was, can humor be tall? These things when we were miking up, I was like, I think Drew and I are going to really disagree on some of these things because I picture, Michael Scott in the improv episode of The Office, like just offending everyone, not getting it, like just not understanding. But I think, there are elements, and I like what Drew said about how humor can take on multiple forms. But I think also just humor in the workplace it's a very sensitive area. It's definitely the worst place to experiment with your budding comedy career. I would probably try it with friends and family first, and then dip into work. But yeah, it is. I mean, it's your job. They're paying you to be there to perform and do your work, not really be a comedian. I would say I'm a personality hire for sure. I don't have the computer science skills that Drew has, but it's neither here nor there.
This is probably a bad time for me to announce that I was just about to try my tight five here of all my really offensive jokes in front of all my coworkers and LinkedIn audience.
But it creates not only touches on a really kind of core component of humor and comedy is that it has to be practiced. You need a safe space that you can practice humor. This is why even whether it's Ali Wong or right now Chris Rock is touring, trying to do a new special, and people on Reddit are like in the stand-up community are like, oh, I went to his last show and it was terrible. We barely made. He's like, he's got to practice stuff. This is the reason why people drop in and practice and try different comedy, is that you never fully know. And so you want to create a safe space where you can have that. So as Natalie says, maybe it starts with some friends. Maybe it starts with an online community. Maybe it starts with a course or whatever it is, but finding those opportunities to get out there and practice and try it in that safe space before you bring it into a corporate setting.
Oh, absolutely. And if anybody at home has any examples of, maybe they heard a joke or said a joke that didn't go over very well, would love to see those too. Valerie says, I've always used humor in my previous job. My standard would be with vendors from the U.S. They would always notice my accent being from Massachusetts, and I would just put on accent. I have no accent. That's a really good classic one. I am also very partial to referring to anybody's pets or children as having to have, a cameo. People usually like that. There are some real classics.
Scott, I love. You're like, if anyone has a terrible joke they told, drop it down in the chat below.
Let's make this the most offensive chat stream we have.
Yeah, anything, say something horrible, just put it down below.
Well, what's interesting about it, because I certainly had humor that I've used that has not gone over where it's been a blank stare. And I think people are worried about offending, and they're also worried about it being awkward. Yeah. And a lot of times a joke that you share is only awkward if you make it awkward, right? Like if you have a positive, inclusive joke that no one laughs at, then it's just a positive, inclusive statement. But if you make a joke and then you're like, right? Come on, right? You see what I see? Like that's what makes it awkward. But I think, so moving past it, I think, is key for the awkwardness. And even in the inappropriate, like I said, I have built an entire career on using appropriate humor. And a couple of years ago, I posted a joke to my social media account about dyslexia. I just made a joke. I was like, hey, has dyslexia ever ruined a wedding? The person is standing up there, instead of saying I do, they said, do I? And I thought it was pretty innocuous. My brother is dyslexic. He thought it was very funny. I got a number of comments on it from dyslexic people that were like, I didn't enjoy this. I was offended by this, or I didn't appreciate it. And at first I was like, I didn't get it. And they were like, no, one, it doesn't make sense. Like, that's not how dyslexia works. It's a reading thing, not a verbal thing. Also, it is a letter thing, not a word thing. It would never actually happen at the scenario, and it's just reinforcing stereotypes. And in that moment, it goes back to the reaction. It could be but I didn't mean to offend, or it could be like, oh, let me learn. I learned about neurodiversity. I learned about, there's entire initiatives around how dyslexia people have a different way of thinking that can be very, very creative. And so I think, again, the goal isn't necessarily that you're always going to be perfect, but how you react to it becomes really, really important.
Yeah, I'm dyslexic, I'll say. So you're allowed to say that joke. I'll let you say it. But one thing I want to say that I think we both align on with using humor in work is coming from that good place and coming from an appropriate place. Every video that I post on Corporate Natalie, I'd be totally fine if my grandma saw, your mom raised you, like, anything you post on Instagram, your grandma's going to see, whatever. I completely agree with that. I mean, every piece of content that I put out there, I try not to swear. I don't want to offend anyone. Like, I'm very intentional about that. And I think I'm always encouraging people to put their content out there and take risks and stuff, but I do think there is a line with, your professional life, and you don't want to put something out that you're not proud of and you're not, anyone in your life could see, and you're confident it won't offend them. So obviously everyone, everything has a chance to offend anyone, and everyone's feelings are valid in that sense. But like, I think it's important when you're coming at humor, especially in the workplace, to have that filter of, good intention and stuff like that.
That's such a great point. And Jamie says it's not always about making a joke, but rather finding something in common in life to laugh at, whether that's kids or family. And then the other thing I wanted to ask about was, what do you say to people? I'm really curious what both of you think about this. When people say, "No, you can't joke about anything anymore. Like everything's too whatever." Like, what do you say that? And I preface that by saying, what do you say in a professional setting to those people?
Yeah, well, for me, when I hear the question or the prompt, because people ask me that a lot of like, hey, how do I do this? Or you talk about humor, well, you can't even make any jokes anymore. And a lot of times it is, to be honest, it's straight old white men. They're like, you can't make these jokes anymore, like the ones that they were making before. And when I hear that you can't make jokes because it's too PC, what I hear them actually saying is either I am not funny enough to adapt to how humor has changed, because humor is constantly changing. The humor that the comedy of vaudeville is very different than what we're seeing on stages now and how people are reacting. So humor is always changing. So if you can't use humor now, it means you're not good enough to change. You're either then too lazy to try to change and adapt to these times, or you are so prejudiced that you can't adopt your humor. Like, the issue is not with society when people are saying that. The issue is with the people creating the humor and understanding that things have changed and you have to get better.
Totally. I think, so I'll just jump in. I think this is kind of a hot take, but if you can't like tell a joke and be funny without being extremely vulgar or extremely offensive, maybe you're just not smart enough to be funny. I don't know. Like, I just think you don't have to offend people. And I think that the too sensitive, like, no one's too sensitive. If something hurts someone, they're completely entitled to those feelings and opinions. Absolutely. So I think the comedy world would probably disagree with that. Like, a lot of comedians are like, I can't tell a single joke anymore. It's like, yes, you can. Just get smarter.
Right. There's really creativity in those constraints too. Mm-hmm. When you're like really forced, you can't rely on stereotypes or just saying a word that goes like you have to actually be more creative. And to Natalie's point earlier about companies acknowledging the importance of humor, I do have a clip here, because a lot of humor is also just sort of feeling like, oh, relatability, right? Like, we've all been here. So I wanted to share a TikTok we made with creator and corporate baddie DeAndre Brown.
DeAndre, what are your salary expectations? Yeah, well, I really haven't thought about it that much, but what's your salary range? It really just depends on the candidate and what they can bring to the company. Okay, well, maybe I have a lot of experience within this arena, but I guess maybe when I get a better idea of what the role is, the role really just depends on the candidate. No, seriously, what am I being paid? DeAndre, I asked first, so maybe you can tell me. Okay, well, we're done here.
Yeah, so I really love that, and he's obviously amazing. But I do think that there's these truths that we all experience in work, and I feel like that's a lot of what Natalie is touching on, in your content. And Natalie, what do you feel like? What do you feel like people is resonating with people who are who are the millions of views that you rack up on your content?
What's resonating now, I mean, initially I started as just poking fun and making jokes, and I think now I'm trying to use my platform and my following to talk about things, especially on my LinkedIn, like quiet quitting and these things that are happening in the workplace of, maybe you don't have to push yourself so hard every single day. And I remember I was working like 80-hour weeks when I first started, and I thought I wore it as a badge of honor. I was like, I am the last in the office on a Friday. And now I've just shifted into, maybe you can try out posting on TikToks. You can explore these avenues that you would have never done before on, when you have your maybe more free time that you would be using in transit heading to the office. So I'm liking talking with my community about kind of how they're using their time, being present, what they're doing outside of work. So it's exciting to hear, all these things that are happening and see it through the lens of social media.
Totally. And Andrew, I wanted to ask about, because we have a very international audience here too, and I'm seeing it coming in here. But how do you make sure that your humor translates across different cultures? And that honestly could be generational too, but just all different kinds of cultures.
Yeah, certainly. It can be whether it's generations or by region or language, et cetera. And I think a part of it comes from what you're talking about and Natalie is talking about here is there's a relatability. There is I love puns. It's part of my LinkedIn title is that I'm a pun tweeter. I love wordplay, but that doesn't necessarily always translate. If English is your second or third or fourth or fifth language, then maybe wordplay isn't quite the thing that's going to resonate. But the truth in humor, that's why they call it the truth in comedy, is those are the things we can resonate with. And so when you're working with humor in different cultures, there's a couple things you can do. One is using a lot of visual humor can really help because a picture can say so much without saying a single word. You can have very funny images. Also storytelling. Right, these stories have transcended, since before we ever had any type of technology or even the written word, we were telling stories. And so that's something that can translate across any culture. And from a very tactical perspective, something that we as comedians do when we're on stage is we'll share test jokes. We will share, if I love puns, if I use a pun at the beginning of a keynote that I'm giving and the audience laughs, then I'm like, okay, great, I'm going to share more puns. If I share a pun and the audience groans, then it's like, okay, I'm going to share more puns and then poke fun of the fact that they're groaning a little bit at these jokes. If I share a pun and no one makes any reaction whatsoever, it's like, okay, don't say any more puns the rest of this talk. Mm-hmm. And so you can use humor to then see what are people resonating with and can I do a little bit more of that? Or, okay, they don't seem to like that, so let me pull off a little bit. But really understanding a little bit more about them and starting slow. And exactly to what Natalie said is start from a positive, inclusive place. And you can share humor. You can always ask people like, hey, what type of stuff do you enjoy? What social media brands do you follow? Who's your favorite comedians? Because if someone says, oh, my favorite comedian is Jerry Seinfeld, that's very different than if they say Ali Wong, which is very different than if they say someone very aggressive like Anthony Jeselnik. And so then you're like, oh, okay, now I start to get a little bit of your sense of humor and what might resonate with you.
Totally.
And,
I was thinking go ahead.
Go ahead.
I totally cut you off. I also think you have to just, when you're putting your content out there in any form, especially humor, you have to just accept, like, not everyone's going to love this.
Yes.
Like, I'm posting videos to 800,000 people, and then they get pushed out on the For You page, and I have no idea who's seeing them. Like, I get hate comments, DMs, messages. Some people hate it, and I'm even coming from, like, an extremely positive place, not trying to offend anyone. So, like, it's never going to land in every setting, and you have to have thick enough skin when you're putting jokes out there that, like, not everyone's going to laugh. Not everyone's going to love it. So, yeah, it's grueling emotionally, but you have to accept it.
And that's it's a really valuable point to drill down on, I think, is not everyone's going to resonate with it. And regardless of, there's a great corporate comedian named Tim Washer, and he's like, look at any really successful YouTube video or whatever, there's going to be people who love it and people who hate it. And for brands to really understand that not everyone, like humor can be very valuable as a content creator or for brands because it can help you identify your audience. By using certain humor and the people that like it, they're going to be like, oh, okay, I actually want to buy into this brand. I had the same experience with my TEDx talk. It's got like, I think, a little over 12 million views or something like that. It's got a ton of likes on it. It's got a ton of dislikes. And so some of the comments on it are great. They are things like, this was the best TED Talk ever, or this was hilarious. And then other ones are like, this was useless. This was, one person said, was just funny. They're like, this person's, his forehead is so big, it should have its own sense of humor. So they were aggressive. And then one person asked for me to go back to engineering. They're like, go back to engineering, please.
Literally
stop doing this
don't
thing.
Quit your day job, too.
Exactly, don't quit your day job and this thing that you made a career out of. And what I've realized, and Natalie, I'm curious if the same is for you, is for me, I've started to realize that every ounce of energy that I focus on the people who aren't laughing, the haters in the comments or whatever, is an ounce of energy that I'm not using to serve the people who do resonate with my message. And I think the same thing applies for people in corporate America, et cetera, is like, if you are allowing the people around you to not be your authentic self and to not use humor, you're doing a massive disservice to yourself for the amount of time that you're going to spend at work. And so it's not just it's not only going to make you more effective, it's going to help you enjoy your life, work and life a little bit better.
That's a really, really great point. And Tara in the audience says you have to be mindful of their cultural background, which is a lot what we've been saying. And this is kind of a point I want to leave us all on to. You know, sometimes people just don't get certain references, and that's part of that cultural conversation, or sarcasm. That could be a neurodivergent, not understanding certain sarcasm. So just being mindful of body language and reactions is super important. It's been such a great conversation. I do want to ask before you go if you have any final words, and if there's, what is a creator that makes you laugh or that you just really love? And Natalie, I'll start with you.
Yes, I mean, thank you so much for having me today. I think this is a great conversation. If anyone has, questions about using humor at work, definitely go first to Drew. If he doesn't respond to his DM, you can totally DM me. I'm happy to help.
Don't even DM me.
Yeah. But yeah, it was a great conversation, and a creator I love. I think Rod. You mentioned you're a millennial.
Yes, we love Rod.
Scott, yeah, we love Rod here. He's great. Mentor, friend, comedian, great guy.
Great follow. What about you, Drew?
Well, I would say that one thing that I would encourage people to think about, and it's a very simple question, maybe even people can respond to this in the chat. And the question, it's a very simple, very important, very dumb question. But the very simple, very important, dumb question is, would you rather do something that is fun or not fun? So in fact, go ahead and share in the chat. Natalie and Scott, I'd love your thought. Would you rather do something fun or not fun?
I don't know. Tough one.
Exactly.
It's hard to answer.
Everyone says fun, right? Everyone is like, as long as it doesn't cost too much money or as long as it's not going to end up with me going to jail, they say fun. And so it stands to reason, if you were to make your work just a little bit more fun, would you be more engaged in it? Or if you were to make your social media content just a little bit more fun, would people react to it a little bit better? And the research shows us the answer is yes. So it's not about necessarily even trying to be the funniest person in the room. It's just try to make things 1%, 5%, 10% a little bit more fun. One way to do that, a new content creator who I've been introduced to through this process, Corporate Natalie, is hysterical. Yeah. Absolutely follow her. She is fantastic. Less from the social media side. I'm a huge fan of the comedian Eddie Izzard.
Oh, yeah.
She is fantastic, incredible material, well worth. If you need one clip to laugh from today, go and search for the Death Star Canteen.
Great.
And you will enjoy yourself for like 6 minutes or so. It's phenomenal.
Awesome. Well, I'll be looking that up later. Thank you both for joining us, and thank you all for tuning in. If you're curious about becoming a creator on LinkedIn, you can turn on creator mode and follow the LinkedIn for Creators page. But also make sure you follow our guests, Corporate Natalie and Andrew Tarvin. We'll be dropping their profiles in the chat. Until next time, thank you so much.